Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Brent McKim, President of the Jefferson County Teachers Association, and I have brought with me Ms. Jo Bell, who is one of our newest members of the Jefferson County Teachers Association. I bring her because she comes to us from Arizona, which has had charter schools for quite some time, and I've asked her to share some of her experiences there as a teacher and as an association leader and as someone very involved in the school district on many school district level committees with what the experience was for a sort of rank and file classroom teacher in that setting. Let me begin by saying that we do have some very significant concerns about charter schools. It's important, and I think the previous speaker helped to clarify the point that there's a difference between innovative educational programs and strategies on the one hand, such as KIPP, and a charter school concept on the other. Charter school is an approach or a strategy in which, as you know, the public schools are, in a sense, outsourced to nonprofit or even for-profit entities and are released from many of the obligations, including some that may be very, very important obligations like open meetings and sunshine laws and those sorts of things. So there's a very significant difference between a strategy for an educational program and the charters. We have two concerns about charters. One is that they are really counterproductive in many ways, and the second is that they're really, especially in Kentucky, unnecessary. In terms of being counterproductive, let me just share some of what we know. We know that in 2004, the National Assessment Governing Board released an analysis of charter schools' performance on the nation's report card, NAEP. And the report found that charter school students, on the average, score lower than students in traditional public schools. Charter school students who were eligible for free or reduced lunch scored lower than their peers in traditional public schools. Charter school students in central cities scored lower than their peers in math in the 4th grade. And the study also showed that charter schools enrolled smaller proportions of students with disabilities than traditional public schools do. In a different study conducted in North Carolina, Professor Robert Bifulco and Helen Ladd found that students in charter schools actually make considerably smaller achievement gains than they would have in traditional public schools. In the November 2008 study by Frankenberg and Siegel-Hawley, they found that charter schools were more segregated than magnet schools and public schools. Continuing, Stanford University issued a fairly well-known study known as the Credo study, in which they found that states with more charter schools were the most likely to be found to have poor performing charter schools as a group. In other words, the more charter schools they had in their state, the lower the state tended to perform as a whole. They also found that states that granted the largest numbers of charters in their first 10 years, such as Arizona, Florida, California, and so forth, were found to report that the rate of performance of those schools were again falling behind the performance of their peers in regular public schools. Some people have, I guess, when you don't like the results of a study, you can try to question the study. So some have questioned the Credo study, but they said that it was not a randomized sample. Since then, there's been another study that's been done, in this case by the highly regarded Mathematica research group. They looked at students who were in lotteries for assignment to charter schools. And they looked at those that were selected by random lottery and those that were not. So it was a completely randomized sampling of students, because it was just who got pulled out and who didn't from the lottery. And they found the same sorts of things that were found in the study by Stanford University. There was no performance edge on the average to the charter schools when they were compared to the regular public schools. So you have study after study indicating that the charter schools are not any more likely to do better than a regular public school, and in fact a fair bit of evidence that they're likely to do worse. So those are some of our concerns with regard to them being counterproductive. It's really also a situation where they're not, especially in Kentucky, they're not necessary, because in the states where charters began, the issue was people were saying, well, there's just too many red tape strings attached, and schools can't innovate locally like they need to. But in Kentucky, we really have an extraordinary level of local school empowerment through our school-based decision-making councils, where those councils are authorized by law to, for example, set curriculum and school policies that supersede the school board. So you have that local empowerment through SBDM under SBDM statute here in the state. Certainly, I come from Jefferson County, where the issue of school choice is one that's important to parents, and we have a very robust school choice system in Louisville, where we have magnet programs and students are able to choose programs that meet their needs and interests, and parents are as well. Certainly, some parents and students don't get their first choice, but I think most do, and it's a very robust and rich school choice system. And finally, if you have a really struggling school, as you all know, we passed House Bill 176, which did authorize EMO, Education Management Organization. So we are capable of having an outside group, even including KIP for that matter, operate a school within our current statutes because of what was passed with House Bill 176. So we should be very cautious, because there is strong evidence that these are counterproductive and they're really unnecessary. And finally, let me just say, our superintendent in Jefferson County relates his experience with charter schools when he was in Massachusetts by saying, for every 5 students that he lost from his regular program schools to charter schools, because the money followed the students, he would lose about $10,000 per student, which caused him to lose 1 teacher for every 5 students that had left the system. And you can see the impact, the devastating impact that has on a regular public school when you have those sorts of things happening. Let me now turn to Ms. Bell and ask her to share with you some of her experiences as a teacher.
In fact, what you have just done is completed the time allocation that we awarded to you. So if you don't mind, if you have time, we'll come back to her and let her make a comment then.
Okay, thank you.